disabilities, people of color, queer folks, immigrants, veterans, people who are hungry, people without shelter, children experiencing poverty. That's just a partial list. You will deny all of this. We know the truth. Yes. We see, we know what you've done, we vote, and we will hold you accountable.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in the East. Accountability, a critical aspect of American democracy. We saw it on full display last night at another town hall held by another Republican congressman who was confronted by a raucous group of constituents and voters facing their frustration, saying they're, quote, "We see you." About 650 constituents in Chico, California, according to the news outlet Cal Matters, showed up to the town hall meeting of Republican Congressman Doug LaMalfa. He is from California's 1st Congressional District and won in 2024 with 65% of the vote. But that majority approval was not at all visible anywhere last night, as the crowd refused to shy away from airing feelings of anger and frustration and profound disagreement, especially when it came to the Medicaid cuts of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
My name is Cecilia. I'm a constituent from Chico. I've called your office every day since the Big Beautiful Bill. Haven't gotten a response, of course. You've danced around this question a few times today, so I'm going to be a little bit more specific. How do you justify voting yes on the big ugly bill, knowing that 43% of your constituents, the highest of any California congressional district, receive Medicaid and other government assistance? I would also like to know how you plan to make up for the hospital's deficit because of the lack of payment, so the burden doesn't land on the average taxpayer.
Attendees did not like when that congressman blamed the prior administration, the Biden administration, over the issue of executive overreach. Watch that.
I am a retired Air Force veteran, disabled. I question, the context is very much like that woman was just talking about, in that if I, as a military person, had done an iota of what Donald Trump has done against the Constitution of the United States, I would have been court-martialed. So my question to you is, what are you doing to maintain that separation of power between the Supreme Court, Congress, and the White House?
That's a good and important question. We in the U.S. House and the Senate need to assert our portion of that triad. And, much power is vested in the executive branch. And we've seen that grow over the years and years with the executive orders. The Biden era set, for example.
Not buying it. When it comes to the Democratic Party, it got a boost today. When it comes to its 2026 Senate aspirations, former Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio announced that he will throw his hat into the ring to take on incumbent Republican John Husted. As Axios reports, quote, Sherrod Brown, who served 3 terms in the Senate, is the party's best shot at flipping a critical seat in increasingly red Ohio. It comes as Donald Trump's approval rating is plunging, and belief that the country is not headed in the right direction. Democrats do have an opportunity to seize. The question now is whether they can get the momentum and energy and sustained storytelling behind them. But as we heard in Northern California last night, all constituents want is to be heard.
Last time I was here was 8 years ago, and if you met with us more often, we might not have to yell out our
Tectonic shifts potentially in the political landscape in the United States of America ahead of the midterms is where we begin this hour with some of our most favorite experts and friends. Matt Dowd is here, MSNBC senior political analyst. Lucky for us, Claire and John have stuck around. They are here as well. Matt Dowd, where do you think the country is right now? And let's just, for the purposes of this discussion, put aside a right-left continuum. But where do you think my first job as a reporter was in that area. This is a ruby red part of California, which sounds so weird to people who aren't from California, but its center, its sort of I-5 corridor is deeply red. And to hear this discontent with someone who won in a county where 65% of its residents voted for Donald Trump is stunning. And to hear them so fluent in the policies that Republicans are both voting for and acquiescing to really is so revealing about this moment. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think of town halls like anecdotes. And so a town hall by itself or a couple of town halls by themselves, to me, would be like, they'll send a signal, but are they really telling us a lot? But when you combine an anecdote with data, that's when the problem develops. This same thing reminds me of what happened to the Democrats in 2010, where there was a bunch of people showed up at town halls and they expressed their displeasure with Obama and, everything else that was going on. And many Democrats said, well, no, these people are self-selective. They're just showing up. They're not really the swing voters. And then the data showed otherwise. And then 2010 happened in the course of this. And I think I like to look at this election and this moment in comparison to what happened in 2018, which was a huge Democratic year in 2018 in Donald Trump's first midterm in his first reelection. And the numbers, comparable numbers, are worse today for Donald Trump and the Republican than they were in 2018. Donald Trump's approval rating is worse. Donald Trump's advocacy for a bill that has a -20, the big, beautiful bill or whatever he calls it, is a much worse anchor to be held onto. But the most significant number that I've noticed of why this may be actually worse for the Republicans this time than 2018 is one thing that held up Republicans in 2018 and in 2020 and in 2024 was this idea, though, no matter how people personally felt about Donald Trump, they thought he was a rogue, they thought he was a villain, they didn't like him personally, they didn't trust him, but they thought he was good on the economy. They assumed Donald Trump, because, quote, he was a businessman, was good on the economy. In 2018, on Election Day, Donald Trump had a +8-point advantage on handling the economy. Today, he's -13. That's 21 points difference between when he lost the bad midterms into where he is on the economy. And among independent voters, he's got a -30 on the economy, on people's perception of his ability to handle the economy. So on their own, I think the town halls would tell us something, but when you combine what they tell us about in conjunction with the data, it shows the Democrats' enthusiasm is up. It shows Republicans' enthusiasm is down. And I know we'll talk about Epstein, and I think that has large part to do with it. And all of the numbers are as bad or worse than they were for the Republicans in 2018.
Matt Dowd, if you were to give advice to Democrats, it's really hard to read in the polls what it is that makes Democratic voters mad at Democratic leaders. I mean, they're on the right side of all these issues, but it's this gut thing that they don't see them fighting enough, is what the polls show. How do you make that reality, or how would you advise Democratic politicians to act or to conduct themselves, or what choices they should make in this moment?
Well, as happens often in our history, the voters are ahead of political parties, and it sometimes takes a little while for the leadership and the politicians to catch up to the voters. I think Democrats have begun to catch up to where voters are, and the threat the Democratic voters feel that the Republicans and Donald Trump are to not only the country and the Constitution, but actually their life, their daily lives and how they live, whether it's health care or, loss of freedoms and all of those things. And so I would just say, Democrats, hurry up and catch up to where your voters are. And I think you listed off three things about, will the Democrats ride momentum and the energy, and then you said the storytelling. They need to get a handle on the storytelling. I think for the moment, letting the Epstein thing roll out and piling on and all that, talking about the economy is fine, but by some time of the first quarter of next year, they need to have a concise story to tell that's not only Donald Trump's a threat and what he's doing is wrong, but here's who we are. And they need to tell that story in a consistent, clear way. It can wait until the first quarter, but I'd say hurry up and catch up to the voters and have the same energy that the voters have, and you adopt that same energy.
Claire McCaskill, how are Democrats doing in your view on that mission?
Well, I think Matthew's right. I think they have not caught up with the voters yet, but I think they're getting there. And this is very common. I know that my fellow panelists will agree that in the aftermath of Barack Obama winning, a lot of the same angst was felt on the Republican side. We don't have a leader. We're not fighting hard enough. What happened? How did this guy get elected? This is the end of the Republican Party. The demographics are against us. Strong leaders will emerge, and they will do better. And Matthew's right about the story, but I want to drill down on one thing that he mentioned about the data, and that is the independent voter. Keep in mind, the number of people who call themselves independent is growing and growing and growing because people are very disaffected with both parties. The Democratic Party needs to laser focus on those independent voters, and the economy is the way to do it. The other way to do it is with veterans. I noticed the veterans that were at this guy's town hall last night. You can't say we cut the suicide hotline because of illegal immigrants for military veterans. That doesn't work. You can't blame the immigrants for reducing the services to Americans' veterans. The veteran community has a big role to play here. They're particularly powerful with independent voters. So the economy and what everything is going to cost next year, along with telling a story about what they've done in terms of debasing our military and not respecting our veterans, that's how you can move those independent voters. And that's what the Democratic Party needs to spend some time thinking about.